Did everyone enjoy the new epilogue episode that came out from My Hero Academia last week? It basically gave us another look at the cast 8 years later, as well as more details on Deku's life after the battle against Shigaraki and All for One. It's not a very in-depth look, but it's a nice extra that author Kohei Horikoshi added on to the final volume for this series, and I can't fault Bones for wanting to make sure they properly cap off one of the most popular anime series of the last 10 years. The majority of the epilogue itself is not so interesting to me that I'd make a video about it, but when it first released as a manga chapter, the incredibly enthusiastic fan reaction to our particular moment did surprise me. It was a scene where our main character, Deku, finally moved forward with what looks like a romantic relationship with his close friend and love interest, Ochaco Uraraka. It's a nice little addition to the ending of My Hero Academia's story, but when I consider nearly everyone's reaction to this, as well as the much more negative reaction to the original ending, it feels a bit over-exaggerated to me. If you didn't keep up with the My Hero Academia manga releases, the original ending was not received well by fans at all. It featured Deku as a down-on-his-luck teacher living a normal life 8 years in the future, while all of his friends and classmates went on to become popular, successful heroes. The blowback towards the ending was definitely overblown, but in the long run, fans didn't like seeing Deku like this, and they felt like he deserved better. Most of these reactions I sort of expected, but I was especially surprised to see just how many people were livid about the fact that the ending did not particularly confirm any relationship between Deku and Ochaco. In fact, that was probably one of the most common complaints about the ending, which is just bizarre to me. The two have had their moments, of course, but it's not like romance was ever a big part of My Hero Academia's story. It would have been nice to see, I guess, but in the end, I didn't really think of it as the big middle finger that so many fans saw it as. Now let me be clear. From the beginning, it's very obvious that Horikoshi intended to develop Ochaco as the main love interest for Deku. I'm not denying that. They have a lot of close interactions early on that don't just establish their friendship, but also solidifies them as pillars of support for each other when times get tough. It doesn't take long before Ochaco realizes that she's got feelings for Deku, and while it's certainly a cliched shonen romance setup so far, it's at least done pretty well. However, instead of developing those feelings and turning it into a subplot of its own, Horikoshi decides to have Ochaco bottle up her feelings instead. This is a real letdown if you are invested in this romance, because soon after, Deku begins getting wrapped up in more and more dangerous high-tension situations, where his interactions with other heroes and even opposing villains take precedence over his relationship with Ochaco. Ochaco herself gets relegated to the background, with her having less chances to appear as the story of My Hero kicks into overdrive. When she is relevant, it's only to develop her subplot with Toga, and while that is mostly centered around romance, it isn't doing much to develop her relationship with Deku. By the end of My Hero Academia, Deku and Ochaco's significant interactions post her realizing her feelings and shutting them out are far and few between, with most of them just teetering on the edge of romantic. To make things worse, the story never really makes it clear that Deku likes Ochaco back. We've seen him get flustered over her, of course, though it's always made out to be because Deku is a shy boy who isn't used to hanging out with cute girls. He's had the same reaction to other female characters like Mei Hatsume, so it's not like Ochaco is particularly special on that front. There are a few moments where Deku does show that he thinks of Ochaco in a special way, but once again, they are very, very scarce. But if I'm honest, that was never really much of an issue for me. My Hero Academia is a shonen battle manga, so a romance that's lightweight and underemphasized is pretty par for the course. Naruto is a great example of a similar kind of romance, with Naruto and Hinata having so little in the way of proper romantic moments that the mangaka had to put together a whole movie just to give their romance a bit more connective tissue. Bleach as well doesn't really have a lot of romantic moments between Ichigo and Orihime, despite them being the OTP of the series, so to speak. One thing that's always surprised me is how popular these pairings still are regardless, despite not being given a lot of presence or significance in the actual story. I'm not a big ship guy, nor do I read much in the way of fanfiction, but even then, I still see a lot of posts on the internet talking about how great these characters are together, or talking up these romantic moments that never seemed like a big deal to me. Of course, if you just like the two characters together, I'm not going to shame you for that. At the very least, compared to Naruto and Hinata or Ichigo and Orihime, Deku and Ochaco do have more moments that establish a romantic connection between the two of them. I just find it hard to relate to being so mad about their relationship not bearing out in the end. I've read a lot of shonen manga, and to be honest, I've seen a lot of love stories start up between characters only for them to be completely unresolved by the end of the series. It's to the point that I'm not just used to it, but I even expect it. Love interests and romance have become a pretty cliche yet enduringly popular trope, and it's not too hard to shove one into your story when you want one. So when Deku and Ochaco did not explicitly have a romantic relationship by the ending of My Hero Academia, I didn't really care all that much. However, a lot of other people really did care a whole lot, and they sure made their thoughts known. Nobody was satisfied until the epilogue chapter came out and smoothed things in the fandom over for a bit. But I do have to ask, to anyone who's a big fan of these two together, is this little moment between the two of them in the epilogue even worth it? The epilogue is actually decently long, yet this scene between Deku and Ochaco doesn't even happen until the very end. And while it does basically confirm these two have romantic feelings for each other, that's about it. It almost feels like a hastily put together response by Horikoshi in reaction to the backlash over the two not getting together in the original ending. As if to say, hey, it's okay, Deku and Ochaco get together, you see? No need to get mad about anything. Maybe it's just my outside perspective as someone who doesn't really do shipping, but if you're a fan of this pairing, I kind of assume people would want more than just an explicit romantic connection between the two of them, that they'd want to see them do coupled things like go on dates or plan a life together. I know Horikoshi didn't exactly leave a lot of room for that to begin with, and who knows if he would even be good at telling a romance-focused story like that. But if you're fired up about this whole thing at all, I have doubts that this offhand confirmation really does anything for you. I think the reality of things is that having this moment between Deku and Ochaco in the epilogue is just so people that like that pairing can be smug over all the other ones that weren't canon or whatever. I'm not so out of tune with shipping that I'm not aware of all the wars that happen from fandom to fandom, and My Hero Academia is so popular that you know all this gets amplified to even bigger extremes. This moment, I feel, really only has value to people that want to know that their pairing won. But that just feels like a hollow victory to me. I mean, just think about it. Do you really think that all those other shippers who are fans of other pairings not made canon by the author care about that fact? No. They're still going to enjoy their pairing whether it's in fan art or fan fiction. They don't need their pairings to be canon to be valid, and neither do fans of Deku and Ochaco. At the end of the day, that's probably what really bothered me the most. Even if we never got this epilogue chapter, you could still enjoy reading fanfiction or looking at fan art of these two the same as you always could. Nothing was stopping you, just like all the people who enjoy weird crack ships that would never be reality in canon still enjoy them without having to be validated by the author. To make a long story short, it's nice that Deku and Ochaco got to have a final romantic moment between the two of them, but if we're honest, it's not as exciting as people seem to take it as. And if you didn't like the ending before, this alone shouldn't change that. My Hero Academia has taken a bit of a tumble over its final arc, and while the romance part of it could have used more work, I don't think the fact that it was neglected hurts it that much in the long run. Your mileage may vary depending on how much you like the pairing, I suppose, but I think that if you get some perspective on the whole thing, you'll realize that all of this isn't really much of a big deal. But maybe I'm just too cynical to really get invested in romantic couples anymore, and maybe there is something to this pairing that I'm missing. If so, you can let me know by leaving a comment below. I would like to know what other people have to say about this, and I'm willing to change my mind as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see what I've got coming out next. This was a video from Square One, and thanks for watching.